I stared blankly at the note. Was he serious? He hadn't even bothered to open the pink letter, so clearly personal. Neither had he bothered to sign his message to me, this time, but really there was no need. There was only one person in the entire British Empire who could write like this. Angrily I stomped over to my desk, grabbed one of the message papers and a pen and began scribbling. Charity is important. Is the improvement of the lives of the poor of no interest to you? The reply came almost instantly. Not if by so doing they become richer and I poorer. Gah. Grinding my teeth, I took a look around the office. Bare stone walls, no ornaments, no carpets, no nothing. Of course, he was mean with money. I should have guessed from the way he dressed, all in simple black without one piece of colorful brocade or silk on his waistcoat. He practically had the word, skinflint, printed on his forehead. In capitals. Too bad he didn't look like a skinflint. He should be old and ugly and skinny, like my aunt, not some reincarnation of Adonis in granite. That would make working for him so much easier. But what about the personal letter? Taking that out of the pile, I examined it closely. It really hadn't been opened. Who was it from? What was it about? Why hadn't it been opened? My fingers hesitated over the next piece of message paper. I would have loved to ask but didn't dare. I didn't want to get fired on my second day at work. So instead I wrote. Dear Mr. Ambrose. Be assured that you shall receive no further requests to do good deeds from me. Yours sincerely. Miss Lily Linton. The reply wasn't long in coming. Mr. Linton. It is not doing good deeds that I object to, it is the principle of charity. I do not give something for nothing. Remember that, Mr. Linton. Rickard Ambrose. Dear God, was he threatening me? Yes, probably. A tingle went down my spine. It felt dangerous, darkened, exciting. Then another message popped out of the hole in the wall. Mr. Linton. Bring me file 38XI199. Rickard Ambrose. Spiffing. Here we go again. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. Back and forth I went the whole day, like a busy little ant carrying bits of leaves to the hill, only that I carried darn heavy files instead of leaves. Oh, and there also was the fact that ants could lift 5 times their body weight and that they couldn't get chucked out of the anthill for not working fast enough. Lucky ants. I, for my part, heard a fresh plink that announced another demand for a file every 5 minutes. Apparently Mr. Ambrose was still determined to break my resolution and make me give him some excuse for firing me. Ha, that fellow didn't know me from Adam. Or rather Eve, since I was a girl. Some part of me wondered what he did with all those files. Surely, a secretary's duties consisted of more than carrying files. Having letters dictated, for example. Oh, but for that he'd have to actually speak to me, I muttered, grabbing another box of files from the shelves. And he couldn't do that, now could he? Blast him. While I slaved away, my determination grew. I would keep this job. Moreover, I would make him accept me as a girl, and then I could come to work in my own clothes and stop wearing this stupid top hat. But how to make him accept me? I have to catch him, I growled, grabbing the next box and imagining that it was Mr. Ambrose's stiff neck. I have to grab him and simply make him see. Yesterday, I hadn't been able to get to him in time, and he had escaped. Today, he had placed his watchdog in front of the door, but he would have to come out eventually. To prevent him slipping away like last time, I cracked my office door open and kept an ear out for any steps moving out there. As the day progressed, I got more and more excited. The thought of seeing him again, and of giving him a whopping big piece of my mind, was thrilling. I hadn't set eyes on him since the day he not so graciously accepted me into his service, and I was looking forward to the encounter very much. Did punching your employer count as grounds for dismissal? Too bad I didn't have my parasol with me. Sometime around 12 o'clock, the requests for files suddenly stopped. He was preparing to leave. Now he had to be coming soon. I sidled up to the door in anticipation. Steps approached my door. What, was he coming to see me? No, the steps didn't sound like him. Too slow, too timid. There was a knock on my door and Mr. Stone's voice called, Mr. Linton. May I come in? Please do, I said, stepping back, frowning. Mr. Stone entered with a slightly puzzled expression on his face. I am to inform you, he said, that Mr. Ambrose has left again and that you can finish your day early, too, if you want to. What? Yes, the strangest matter indeed. He never leaves early normally, and now twice in a row. And this time he even went down the back staircase that is normally never used. I am beginning to fear for our master's safety. You are you? I grabbed my top hat off the desk and slammed it on my head with probably a bit too much force. Well, you're right to be. Mr. Stone paled. So you think, too, that his life is in danger? That there is someone after him? You bet there is, I growled and marched out of the room, slamming the door behind me. Oh that, I couldn't even think of a bad enough word for him. The next time I would get my hands on him, I would take one of those little message containers with the words, I am female, in it and stuff it down his throat. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. I went home to lunch, but since I didn't have the wherewithal to cope with my aunt's incessant questions about Lieutenant Ellingham, I made my disappearance as soon as possible. I decided to go to the King's Library to look a few things up. Maybe I'd find an interesting book on China, or a colonial adventure story, or... All right, I admit it. I was going to look up Rickard Ambrose. So what? Was it a crime that I wanted to find out a bit more about the man I worked for? It was only natural that I would like to discover a few more things about him. It might help me avoid such blunders as the one with the charity requests. Maybe I'd discover that he kept a poodle, or was allergic to strawberries, or some other interesting fact. Maybe I'd even find out whether he was, as I was beginning to suspect, more than a simple citizen. Books and newspapers could hold all sorts of interesting information. Fortunately, unlike riding, shooting and pretty much anything else that I thought might be interesting to do in life, reading was not solely the domain of men. Nobody gave me a second glance as I walked along the gallery of the King's Library, between the mile-high shelves and imposing busts of historical personalities. In passing, I sent up a glare at the busts. Of course you're all men, I muttered, gesturing up at them threateningly. It didn't occur to anyone to put a bust of Queen Elizabeth or Mary Astle up there, did it? Darn chauvinist sculptors. An elderly gentleman passing in the opposite direction stopped when he saw me shaking my fist at the statues, and blinked as if he wasn't sure he was seeing right. I quickly hurried onto the newspaper section. Shortly afterwards I stood in front of a row of shelves, examining the enormous books which contained the times of the last few decades. Where to start? From the dates on the file boxes I knew his history went back quite some time. So I pretty randomly picked one of the massive volumes. With effort, I managed to get it down from the shelf and transported it to a table next to a bust of Julius Caesar. Hello there, fellow, I said, petting Caesar on his head. Let's see what we have on Mr. Ambrose, shall we? Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk 3 hours and 7 volumes later, I gave up. He was everywhere, always on the edge of things, never quite part of society yet always in the middle because all of society seemed to orientate itself around him. Mr. Ambrose had been spotted near the races, but did he bet on a horse? No, Mr. Ambrose had been seen talking with business partners outside the theatre. But did he go in? Of course not. Once he had been spotted at the opera but had left before the performance ended. What did he do in his free time? Where was his family? What nefarious activities had he engaged in to amass his enormous fortune? There were no articles about his past, not even the indication that at some point he might have given an interview. Nowhere in the dozens of papers I leafed through did I find a single answer to my questions. But then again, why was I so anxious to find out? What business of mine was it how he had gotten his money? Why did I so desperately want to know? Deep down I knew why. With a shiver I remembered his words, almost a threat, on that day he had sat opposite me in his office, his dark eyes burning holes into my head. I need a man, Miss Linton, not a girl who will run off screaming at the things she will see where my business takes me. By that, I was sure, he had meant more than seeing the inside of file boxes. I wanted him to accept me as his secretary, as his female secretary, however scandalous other people would consider that. Yet I was also slightly afraid of what would happen if he did. What would he do if I really managed to convince him to let me work for him for real? Or more importantly, what would I have to do? Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. When I got home, my aunt was waiting and ready for battle, glaring at me like an emaciated Valkyrie. I was half expecting her to be holding a sharp spear and riding an 8-legged horse. Where were you? She demanded. I was in the park walking, showing off my charms to the young men there, I lied brightly. Just in case I might happen to come across Lieutenant Ellingham. Oh, my aunt's thin lips relaxed a tiny little bit. Really? Well, good, that's very good. I shall do that often now, if it is all right with you, aunt, I continued quickly, determined to exploit this sudden inspiration to the limits. Darn it, why hadn't I thought of this before? After all, now that I have been introduced into society, there are hundreds of men I could meet. Thousands, in fact, and the more I meet. You're quite right, my aunt came up to me. For a moment I was worried that she might want to hug me, which would have been slightly awkward because, we were both wearing hoop skirts and I hated her guts, skeleton and strict, black boots. But instead, she merely laid a hand on my arm. It was enough for me to want to run screaming and take a bath in the Thames. I'm very happy you've finally started behaving like a lady, Lily. I knew you would see sense someday. I thanked her like a proper little lady and then hurried off. Not towards the Thames for a bath, because I knew perfectly well that it was full of dirty toilet paper. Instead, I directed my steps towards the garden. Why the garden, you may ask? Simple. Over all the questions about Mr. Ambrose that were plaguing my poor, chocolate-deprived brain, I had not forgotten my sister and her problems. When I had entered the house, the sun had just been about to set. I knew perfectly well what that meant. Ella and Edmund would soon have their nocturnal rendezvous in the garden. So I went out there and this time didn't even stop to take a book with me. Tonight, I was quite sure, I wouldn't need literature to take my mind off things. Judging from the number of flowers that had arrived in my absence, the evening's conversation would provide more than enough distraction. As soon as the moon rose over the streets of London, I heard a rustle from the door and, through the bushes behind which I had concealed myself again, saw Ella hurrying past. Only a moment later, Edmund appeared on the other side of the fence. Ella, my love, he called in a damnably audible whisper. Oh, how it fills my heart to see you. And mine, sighed Ella. Then she hesitated. I mean my heart is filled with joy from seeing you, not from seeing myself. That would be silly. I see myself every morning in the mirror. She brightened. But now you are here, she exclaimed. I have been waiting all day to see you. Your words make my soul sing, Ella. Please, step closer, into the moonlight, so I may behold your lovely face. I will, but first I have to tell you something, Edmund. What? He asked, his breath catching. It is the strangest thing, Ella muttered. I would not even mention such a strange, trivial occurrence if not for your words yesterday, but what? My words yesterday? What words? Now I could hear a distinct note of anxiety in Edmund's voice. It must have shown on his face, too, because Ella smiled at him hesitantly, caught off guard by his expression. Well, what you said about the flowers. You remember, you told me to tell you if Sir Philip sent me any more flowers. I glanced at the young man. Now the expression on his face wasn't simply anxious anymore. It was panicked. Yes, and, has he sent you another bouquet? One, Ella giggled. No, not one. I tell you, the man must be very eccentric. I cannot otherwise account for his behavior. He sent me dozens of bouquets. I had no idea there were that many flowers to buy in the whole city of London. She broke off when she saw Edmund's face. Edmund, what is wrong? What ails you? My heart is breaking, he answered tonelessly, staring into the distance with empty eyes. That is what ails me. It is as I thought. I am doomed. I leaned forward, resting my head on my knees. This was good, better than the theater, except that I couldn't throw peanuts at the actors. I doubt Ella would have appreciated that. What is the matter? My little sister wrung her hands in sudden desperation. Oh, Edmund, reveal to me this terrible secret you are carrying. What is it about those flowers that makes you fear them like death itself? Worse than death, he mutters. 1,000 deaths and the tortures of hell. Dear me, that fellow had definitely read too many romantic novels. I considered interrupting and telling him he was overdoing it. But then, on second thoughts, maybe I'd rather not. Tell me, Edmund, tell me, what are they? The flowers are a sign of affection, said Edmund, his voice as hollow as a drainpipe through which all his hopes were flooding away. Sir Philip wishes to seek your hand in marriage. Ella stiffened. All color drained from her face. I covered my eyes with my hand and let it slip down my face. Good God in heaven, she was actually surprised. No. Yes, he does. No, Edmund. And who can blame him? He continued. You are indeed a fair maiden, Miss Linton. Every gentleman in England should be seeking your hand. You. His voice broke, and after a moment he continued. You are far too good and beautiful for common folk. Edmund, what are you saying? She cried out. I am saying goodbye, Miss Linton. Goodbye, Edmund. Why do you torture me so? And why so distant? Why call me Miss Linton? You are right, he said in the same hollow voice. I should call you Lady Wilkins, for that is who you soon shall be. Apparently, I had been wrong before. Ella had still some color left to drain from her face. It vanished at Edmund's words, plummeting towards the earth's core. Suddenly, not at all amused by the scene, I sat up straight, staring whole arsenals of daggers at Edmund. What was that bastard doing? Was he so heartless that he could just stand there and hurt my little sister? He should be pulling her into his arms and telling her all would be all right. After climbing over the fence, that is. I will never marry Sir Philip, Ella proclaimed. Never. But why not? Edmund asked, his voice still as hollow and dead as an entire graveyard. Is he not a most eligible match? I do not care how eligible he is, sniffled Ella, taking 2 rapid steps towards the fence. Edmund stepped back hastily as she stuck her hand through the poles, trying to reach him. I. Yes, you, he inquired, and his voice wasn't quite as dead as before. I love you, Edmund. Ah, a platonic love, surely, since you are soon to be married. No, a lover's love, Edmund. If I could, I would be thine, to have and to hold. Oh Ella, come into my arms. What the heck? Just 10 seconds ago he was egging her on to marry somebody else, and now he wanted him to snuggle. If all lovers behaved like this, they should be summarily committed to lunatic asylums. Surely, Ella would be too proud and self-respecting to throw herself at a man who had just scorned her. Oh, Edmund, my love. No, apparently she wasn't. I watched in mingled horror and fascination as she indeed threw herself into his arms, or at least as well as she could with the fence in the way. I wondered how long it was going to take one of them to think of the ladder leaning against the garden shed. Probably a good long time still. Anyway, both of them seemed to be much too honorable to just throw themselves at each other. I had expected at least some action and was a tiny bit disappointed when they only took hold of each other's hands and stared into each other's eyes. I had seen both of their pairs of eyes before. They weren't that interesting. So you do not simply feel friendship for me? Edmund demanded, his voice deep with emotion. There is more. A little color returned to Ella's cheeks. You know there is. Yes, but the delight of hearing you say it. He closed his eyes for a moment, sighing blissfully. There is no song of angels that is sweeter to my ears. Yes, he really read too many romance novels. My little sister, not in the least repelled by his sappiness, took one of his hands and lightly pressed it to her cheek. Now we were getting somewhere. I love you, Edmund. When Edmund opened his eyes again, they looked a little more interesting than before. Certainly more intense. As I love you, Ella, my heart's delight. Oh Edmund, you do not know how long I have been waiting for you to say these words to me. They have lain ready on my tongue forever. He pressed her hands again. So you will be mine. Suddenly, the color left Ella's cheeks again. The radiant smile that had lit up her features until a moment ago became laced with sadness. Edmund, What is this? You said you loved me. I do, but. Now there again were tears in Ella's eyes. She didn't seem to be able to continue. So Edmund spoke for her, slowly and gravely. But the objections to our love which you so conscientiously explained to me before, still stand. Nothing has changed. The fact that we love each other does not mean that we can be together. Ella gave a shaky little nod. What if you told your aunt that you did not love Sir Philip? I defy my dear aunt. Oh please. She clasped her hands in supplication. Please don't even make me think of such a thing. Then what do we do? He asked, sounding lost. I don't know. Behind the bushes, I bit my lower lip, deep in thought. Well, I didn't know either. But I'd be damned if that was going to stop me from doing something. At least I had plenty of time on my hands. My new job with Mr. Ambrose was not very demanding. He didn't seem to want anything from me at all. Had I only known then how wrong I was about that. The discovery. The next day I noticed that I was quite distracted by Ella's troubles. Do you want to know how I noticed? It wasn't that I forgot to go to work. Oh no. I forgot to change before going to work and almost walked up to Mr. Stone's desk in a long dress and hoop skirt, announcing myself as Mr. Linton. That would have been a real scandal for Mr. Ambrose to worry about. I noticed my wrong attire just in time and had to hurry back and change in a wild frenzy. By the time I had run back to Empire House it was already 9 o'clock. I hurried up the stairs and into my office, only giving Mr. Stone a brief nod in passing. My desperate lungs lacked the air for a proper greeting. Wheezing, I collapsed onto my chair and let my head fall onto the table. Just then, a message container flew out of the tube with a quiet clink. With the one hand I felt capable of moving I picked it up, opened it and unrolled the message. My eyes focused on the words. Mr. Linton. You are 1 minute and 37 seconds late. If that occurs again, you can consider yourself dismissed. Rickard Ambrose. This chap really knew how to give you a warm welcome. For a moment I considered telling him about my sister's romantic troubles, to make an excuse. But then I decided against it. It would be like trying to explain dancing the polka to a rock in the desert. He just wouldn't get it. Next I considered going over there and skinning him alive. But that might not be so great an idea either. First of all, it might get me sacked. Secondly, I couldn't muster the energy to get up. And thirdly, the blasted door was still locked anyway. A plink announced the arrival of the next message. It appeared that I had to get up, whether I had the energy or not. The message read. Mr. Linton. Fetch file S39XX300. Rickard Ambrose. Spiffing. Simply spiffing. Here we go again. Rising, I started towards the rows of shelves. But then I hesitated. Wait just a moment. File S39XX300. I frowned. The numbering systems for the files didn't start with letters, did it? It always started with numbers proclaiming the years of the file's origin. The 39 in the name probably stood for 1839, this very year, but S. What did that stand for? Snoop, saucy, silly. I went looking under 39 because I didn't know what else to do. 10 minutes later, I had 3 open boxes standing before me and a volcano rumbling somewhere inside me. Dear Mr. Ambrose. There is no file S39XX300. I cannot find it. Yours sincerely. Miss Lily Linton. The reply came immediately. Mr. Linton. There is a file S39XX300. Have you looked in the safe? Rickard Ambrose. What the heck? Dearest Mr. Ambrose. I did not know there was a safe here. Might I inquire why you neglected to tell me this? Yours always, Miss Lily Linton. Angrily I shoved the message into the tube and waited. Only half a minute later, a plink announced the answer. Mr. Linton. You might indeed inquire. It is because I expect my employees be capable of independent thought. The S stands for safe. If that is too difficult for you to comprehend, then maybe you should look for another post. One more fitted to your limited intellectual capabilities. Rickard Ambrose. The arrogant, limited intellectual capabilities. Gah, I didn't even know what names to call him. The newspaper articles about women's insufficient brain size and all the other arguments against our working and voting came to mind. Oh, how I would have loved to skin that man alive. And then maybe roast him slowly over an open fire. Dear Mr. Ambrose. I will go looking for the safe directly. Do not fear, even my limited mental capacity should be sufficient to find a big metal box. Yours always, which means you're not getting rid of me. Miss Lily Linton. I stood up. I went looking. I found the safe. It took me only 5 minutes and then I was back at my desk, still without file S39XX300, for a very simple reason. Fuming, I grabbed a message slip from the bowl and scrawled 4 simple words on it. The safe is locked. Had he been waiting for me to write that? Because the reply came almost instantly. Mr. Linton. It is locked to keep things safe. That is why it is called a safe. Rickard Ambrose. Gah. Was this man trying to drive me crazy? Well, probably. To hell with him. Dear Mr. Ambrose. I know what a safe is, thank you very much. And I know it is locked, because I have tried to open it and not succeeded, as mentioned before. Where is the key? Yours sincerely, Miss Lily Linton. I pushed the message into the tube with maybe a bit more force than necessary and pulled the lever. His answer came as quick as ever. Mr. Linton. Writing in capitals is not as quick or efficient as writing in normal letters. Please refrain from such time-wasting habits while in my employ. The key I have already pushed under the door, as any observant employee would have noticed. Rickard Ambrose. Muttering some not very polite things about Mr. Ambrose, I went over to the door and fetched the key. Then I returned to the back of the room where, in a small niche I hadn't noticed before today, a big, black metal door had been inserted into the wall, with the word, Ambrose, written in simple steel letters at the top. I wondered for a moment why he would feel the need to write his name on his own safe. Did he have that bad a memory? Then I realized that it was probably the name of the manufacturer. So he made safes, did he? What else did he do? Pushing the thought aside and the key into the lock, I turned it and opened the door. It went smoothly and without even squeaking. Sleek and impenetrable, just like its maker. I had expected a metal container of maybe about 3 square feet to lie beyond. Instead I found myself facing the gloom of an enormous steel room, larger than my office, with scores of objects on the shelves that lined the walls. There was everything from the mundane file box to strange rocks, painted wooden idols and large scrolls of parchment that looked as though they had already lived through several centuries. What the hell were these? If Mr. Ambrose was an industrialist as the Duchess had suggested, where had he gotten these from? They didn't look like anything coming out of a factory. On the contrary, they spoke of distance, danger, mystery. Resisting my mighty urge to go and investigate, I turned towards the file boxes and examined their numbers, one by one. There was an S39XX299 and an S39XX301 but no S39XX300. What was he playing at? Did he do that on purpose? I marched back to my desk and composed a fitting message. I even managed not to put any swear words in. Dear Mr. Ambrose. There is no box S39XX300. Yours sincerely. Miss Lily Linton. The message container returned. Pulling it open, I read, Mr. Linton. I told you to look in the safe. Rickard Ambrose. This was getting to be a bit too much. Dear Mr. Ambrose. I did look in the safe. It is not there. If you cannot understand my written messages, I would offer you to read my lips. But unfortunately that is not possible since the door to your office is still locked. So let me say it in plain English once again. There is no box S39XX300 in the safe. Yours sincerely. Lily Linton. When his reply came, the letters were a bit different. Not a hasty scrawl, no, they were as clear and legible as always. But one could be led to think that he had pressed the pen slightly harder on the paper as he scratched those words. Wait, he had the gall to be getting angry. Mr. Linton. If by this subterfuge you think you can make me open my door so you can air your grievances, you are very much mistaken. Bring me file box S39XX300 or you can consider yourself dismissed. Rickard Ambrose. The thunderclouds of my temper began to gather, reading those words. But simultaneously I felt a tingling sensation run down my spine. This box seemed to be pretty important, and it wasn't where it was supposed to be. What was going on? Led by this strange feeling, my reply to Mr. Ambrose was considerably more conciliatory than it ordinarily would have been. Dear Mr. Ambrose. Whatever you may think of my intelligence, it is not so slight as to risk my future merely to get a look at your profile. You are not that nicer looking. The box in question is really not here. Miss Lily Linton. My heart rate picked up as I pushed the message container into the tube. Would he believe me or just fire me? Did the box he wanted even exist, or was it just an excuse to get rid of me? I looked around the bare room and felt a lump rising in my throat. Although I didn't want to admit it, I had already become accustomed to the stark surroundings, accustomed to the idea that this place was mine, my own way to freedom. What would I do if I lost it? Slowly I pulled the lever, and my message disappeared into the tube. The answer came not long after. I opened and unrolled it, and my eyes widened. If the situation hadn't been so serious, the reply would have made me laugh. Mr. Linton. Do you give me your word of honor as a gentleman, as a lad, as an honorable person that you are speaking the truth? Rickard Ambrose. Somehow I couldn't keep a slight grin from my face as I wrote the reply. Dear Mr. Ambrose. I give you my word of honor as a lady who wears trousers that there is indeed no box of the aforementioned name in your safe. Miss Lily Linton. There was no reply. Nothing. For 2 entire minutes I sat there and waited, but nothing came. I had almost given up waiting and was chastising myself for my silly fancies. The box probably wasn't important at all. It was probably some old box he had mistakenly thrown away. That had to be all. I had almost convinced myself of that explanation. Then I heard the rustle of keys from the other side of the room. My head snapped up just in time to see the connecting door to Mr. Ambrose's office swing open. Asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk asterisk tilde asterisk tilde asterisk. The moment I saw him I knew I had been wrong. Wrong about 2 things, to be exact. Firstly, the missing file box was important. And secondly, seeing his profile might actually be worth losing your job over. There he stood, a lean figure, his arms crossed tightly in front of his chest, revealing taut muscles in his upper arms. In his black tailcoat, trousers and shirt he looked like some menacing manifestation of the night, come to banish the day before it was time. The fact that he had a face that seemed to have been cut from a mountain by some ancient master didn't hurt either. I was paralyzed in my chair, not with fear exactly. No, certainly not. I would never be afraid. Rather with, oh, I didn't know. Whatever it was, I had to get a grip, and fast. Mr. Linton. His voice was just as I remembered it, cold and clipped. He nodded at me, but before I could even open my mouth or think of a reply, he had marched past me. I stared after him until he vanished between the shelves at the other end of my office. Mr. Linton. Mr. Linton. So he was still going to keep that up, even now that he was forced to talk to me again. My paralysis suddenly lifted, and I jumped to my feet. I'd show him. I'd show that son of a bachelor. With 3 quick steps I was between the shelves. There was no sign of him there, but the door to the safe still stood open. He was in there. For one moment I was tempted to shove the door closed and lock it, but no. If I ever did choke him, I wanted my hands around his throat. Letting him suffocate in an airtight safe was much too impersonal. Taking a deep, relaxing breath, I stepped in after him, and stopped in my tracks. The inside of the safe room was a mess. Files were scattered everywhere on the floor. Standing before the shelves containing the boxes, Mr. Ambrose was thoroughly busy dismantling and examining every part of every file box he could find, and once he was done with them, throwing them over his shoulder onto the floor. He was like a ravenous animal burrowing through the carcass of a deer. The only difference was, while a ravenous animal might have found what it needed to still its hunger in a carcass, he appeared to come up blank. It must be here, he muttered. It must be. What must be here? I asked. He completely ignored me. By Jove, 22.